Remove the wheel bearings and pack the wheel bearings on this two-wheel drive Chevy truck. We need to remove the brakes first. So we've got a 3/8 size. And we're going to remove the two bolts here on the brakes. Loosen these up right here. Stick that in there, make sure it's tight. Break this free on both sides here. You usually twist them out after you break them free loose on these guide pin bolts. It's two guide pin bolts that we're gonna get the brake caliper off with. You can see the guide pin bolt right here. With a slide it, you can pull it out or just slide it back. We'll just move it back a little bit so we can get the caliper off. So okay, after we get this free and pulled back a little bit, we're now gonna wiggle this off. We have a bungee cord here on purpose, and we're gonna wrap the bungee cord around the brake assembly, so we don't want any pressure on this hose. Then we're just gonna strap it up here on the frame. So, okay, you can see how it's keeping pressure off of this hose right here. That's the main objective. Okay, now we're gonna grab some channel lock pliers. We're gonna stick this on here and we just kind of move it. Okay, now that's off. There's our dust cap. Okay, right after our dust cap, there's a cotter pin. We find this cotter pin. See the cotter pin up here. It's from the bottom. It looks like it's bent over here. Just snapped off. We'll use a new one. What are you doing? I just lost my screwdriver somewhere, didn't I? Grab the bottom of that cotter pin. Pull that out. You can usually reuse these, but we're going to get a new one. And if this is not loose, we need to break this loose. So we're going to break that loose there. We're going to twist this nut off. Okay, and then we just kind of gently pull back on the rotor assembly here. Grab it like this. You can do this a couple of ways. What we can do is we can thread this on a little bit if you want. Then we just bring it out the very edge here. And then we just kind of tap it and it just pops that inner bearing and assembly off right here. Now we're going to clean up our bearing and our seals. The seal here, we have our inner and outer bearings. Turn this on, we're going to clean all the grease off. Remove all of this grease off of here, like this. Recycles, you can wash them like this. And clean all the grease here on the inside. Once we get it clean, we want to visually inspect them too. Okay, so once we've cleaned those up good, visually inspect the bearings here, make sure that they're free, make sure that they spin smoothly. If there's any blue color, or if there's chips or nicks in the bearing, we want to replace the bearing instead of repacking it. So, good visual inspection, make sure it's clean with the solvent. Do not spray compressed air on this. The bearing can come apart very easily when you spray compressed air. And we're gonna clean the washer off. Okay. It's good to clean all the different components off so then that way we have fresh grease inside. That's why we have our rotor over here. This is a water-based. We're gonna be very, very careful with this seal because it's a water-based cleaner. Okay. Inspect the seal. Looks like we're good to reuse that seal. Just kind of clean it off here. Get all that bad grease out. Okay. Now we're gonna clean the lower races here. These are where the bearing rides. We want to visually inspect those races. So this is the outside race. Clean all the grease. We can even clean off the rotor with this, because we don't want to have any grease on the rotor, right? We're going to clean the other side. Make sure that's all out of there. We want fresh grease. And this is our ABS reluctor wheel here. You can see if there's any chips on this. If there is, you get to replace the rotor in assembly, unfortunately. But we clean all the grease off here, inside of here, get all that on there. And of course, you can clean your hands off. You need to, right? You don't want to have grease when you reassemble everything, especially on the rotor surface. Okay, now that that's all cleaned up good, both sides looks pretty good. Bearings look good on the inner races, no scratches, no dings, no blue color. Same thing here, no scratches, ding, or blue color. Blue means it's been overheated. You guys don't know. Okay. All right, now we're gonna pack these. Okay, with some fresh grease here. Okay, and we have a bearing packer right behind you. So, I'll wipe these up. Dry here, just let this air dry while we're waiting. All right. Here, we have this piece, we twist this, and then the cone is down here. We're going to put a cone down into the cone, and we're going to tighten this down. And we're going to pump this, and then it's going to squirt the grease through it. We just simply pull the bearing out. Okay. So we're going to grab the bearing. You can see it's all packed in there. Okay, that's ready to go. I like to put a little bit more on the rollers on the outside, and we'll just let it hang out there because we got one more to go. Now, if you don't have one of these bearing packers, you can force grease through the side like this. So maybe either you're doing this at home, you can force grease through the side here, force grease through the side here. See how I'm pushing that in, forcing it all in there. Okay, and then we're grabbing this, forcing it in, and then we want to get on the outside. Okay, so we want to make sure it's properly packed here. So this one I just packed by hand. So you just force like this. Use your palm of your hand, it's a little bit easier. Force it through. And the object here is to get this grease to shoot all the way through. Just to be sure, we don't want the person coming back to say we didn't do it. We're gonna make sure and crank it down, right? And we're gonna pack this one here. Okay, we're gonna move this. Okay, reach in here, and that one's ready. Okay, that's gonna hang out there. Existing grease off this spindle, especially up here, right up against the backing plate, and just clean all this off. We want to get I like to get a little bit of grease and put it on the spindle, because as the wheel goes down the road, sometimes if we don't have enough in there, it can kind of splash around. We want to just put some up here, so just kind of put it right here. It assists with assembly, keeps us from ruining the seal. Throw some of that in there, because there was, if you remember right, when I cleaned all that out, there was some in there, right? So I'm gonna clean all that. Okay, and that's pretty good right there. That's about where I want to be. That's gonna go kind of bounce around as the wheel rotates and gets on the races. Okay, so we've got our rotor all cleaned up. All the races are nice and clean. What we do is we just grab the bearing here and make sure that there's plenty of grease, which there is. I like to put some on the outside, especially where the race is, and just drop it down in with the tapered side down, just like that. Okay. Then what we're going to do is take our sill. You can reuse this sill as long as you don't damage it. In this case, we're going to reuse the sill. So pay attention to what side. It's going to go like this, and then we just simply do a little circular motion here. Tap it until it's seated in, just like that. Use a brass hammer because that's more safe on the metal parts. The brass is a little bit better and safer. Okay, so now we're going to put the rotor back on, and then grab the other bearing and sill that we just packed. To grab the outside of the rotor where my hands are positioned, so then that way we don't get grease on the rotor. Then we just push it in until it seats in there. You can kind of see how it went back and seated in place. We're going to grab our bearing. Probably going to get a little bit more grease just for fun. Okay, and the taper goes towards, and we just kind of don't get grease on the rotor, but just kind of angle it up into place. This has a special key here, and this special key you can kind of see there, and this is where the nut is on this side. It's going to go into that little groove right there. I'm going to push that into place. Okay, we've got our washer on. Now we're going to get the nut. Be very, very careful that this is a fine thread, so we want to just barely twist it into place here. And we're spinning the rotor as we are pulling the bearings into place. That's very important because we want it to go in the cones in those races properly. What I thought it was. Okay, so as we are spinning it now, I'm going to look at the torque spec here. We're going to go until it's 12. Okay, See, it's up against her tight. Still nice and smooth. It's not catching. And then it says we need to back this off. And then we're going to tighten it by hand. Okay, after we loosen it by hand, then we get it lined up. And we put this in here, and then we're gonna lift up on this hand and bend it up. This one is gonna come in contact with our wonderful dust cap. So you can do one of two things. You can cut it off, or you can bend this one up too. I usually like to bend it up as well. Okay. Then we're going to clean out our dust cap. Right here, we're going to clean out our dust cap. Put some new grease in there. And then have to fill it completely full, but some in there. It allows it to move back and forth a little bit. Okay, and then we're just gonna line it up. And we're gonna tap this in. But it's not going in straight, gotta kind of pay attention. I like to go kind of in a circular motion like this. Okay, we want to make sure that's all sealed on there. We don't want any of this grease on the brakes. Looks like we're pretty good. So I'm going to take some brake clean and spray this clean now. It's going to clean off all the brake grease here. Let it air dry. Clean off the back side here. If there is any grease, we want to remove that. Next, we're going to unhook the brake caliper with the bungee cord. I'm going to grab our brake caliper here. Okay. And make sure that these pads are seated in place. So when we go back on, we might even need to use a C-clamp. Just kind of pop that in. Get it here in the middle. And then thread these in by hand as we kind of move the caliper. Get them started. Both started, not just the bottom. After they get started by hand a little bit, you tighten them down with our ratchet and torque it to specifications. So after we get these two bolts in, torque them down to the recommended torque. There you go, the bottom one. I kind of bounce between the two. So then that way, we put one in and the other one doesn't thread in, we get to pull the other one out. So it's important to move between the two. Okay, so that one's snug, that one's snug, and then we'll get the torque wrench and tighten it.